I always thought our marriage was a fortress, unyielding and eternal. Clara and I had been together for 12 years, married for 10, and our life in suburban Portland felt like a well-rehearsed symphony. She was a graphic designer, her creativity spilling into every corner of our craftsman home. Vibrant paintings on the walls, eclectic rugs, and a kitchen that smelled of her experimental baking. I worked as a financial analyst, steady and predictable, balancing her wild spirit with my grounded one. We had a daughter, Lily, 7 years old, with Clara's hazel eyes and my stubborn streak. Our evenings were filled with Lily's laughter, Clara's stories, and my quiet contentment. But looking back, I missed the subtle dissonances. Clara's late nights at her studio, her phone perpetually angled away, the way her laughter seemed to catch on something unspoken. I chalked it up to her artistic temperament, her need for space. I trusted her implicitly, blindly, because love, I thought, was built on that trust. One Thursday, I came home early, a rare treat, hoping to surprise her with takeout from her favorite Thai place. The house was quiet, Lily at a sleepover. Clara wasn't in the kitchen or her studio. I called her name, my voice echoing in the stillness. Her phone buzzed on the counter, unattended. A notification flashed, a message from Evan's studio. My stomach twisted, but I dismissed it. She was probably just working late again. I set the takeout down, the lemongrass scent filling the air, and waited. Hours passed. She didn't come home until midnight, her hair slightly disheveled, her smile too bright. "Client meeting ran late," she said, kissing my cheek. I nodded, ignoring the unease gnawing at me. That night, as she slept beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering why her scent carried a hint of cologne I didn't recognize. The next few weeks were a slow descent into paranoia. I didn't want to be that husband, the one who snoops, who doubts. But Clara's absences grew more frequent, her explanations vaguer. She'd laugh off my questions, her eyes darting away, and I'd feel like a fool for asking. I started noticing patterns. Her phone was always locked now. Her laptop password changed. She'd leave for client meetings in dresses I hadn't seen her wear in years. Her lips painted a bold red. I tried to focus on Lily, on work, on anything but the growing suspicion that my wife was slipping away. One evening, while Clara was supposedly at a gallery event, I took Lily to her dance class. On the way back, I drove past Clara's studio, a converted loft in the arts district. Her car wasn't there. I circled the block, my heart pounding, telling myself I was being ridiculous. But then I saw it, her blue Prius parked outside a coffee shop 2 streets over. Through the window, I saw her, laughing, her hand resting on a man's arm. He was tall, with dark hair and a casual confidence that made my chest tighten. I didn't confront her. I drove home, Lily singing in the back seat, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. That night, Clara came home late again, her cheeks flushed. "Great event," she said, avoiding my gaze. I nodded, my silence a shield. I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat in my office, staring at her phone on the counter, tempted to crack it open. I didn't. Not yet. But I started keeping a mental log. Every late night, every evasive answer, every time her smile didn't reach her eyes. I wasn't sure what I was preparing for, but I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. The tipping point came a month later. Clara had left her laptop open on the kitchen table, a rare oversight. I was making coffee, Lily at school, when I saw an email notification pop up from Evan. The subject line, "Miss you already." My hands shook as I clicked it open. The email was short, intimate, filled with references to moments I hadn't shared with her. A picnic by the river, a late-night drive, a joke about her favorite scarf. My vision blurred as I scrolled through their thread, months of messages, each one a dagger. Evan was a photographer, someone she'd met at a gallery opening. Their connection had started innocently, or so it seemed, but had grown into something undeniable. I found photos attached to one email. Clara in a park, her hair catching the sunlight, her smile unguarded in a way I hadn't seen in years. I felt like I was drowning. I copied the emails to a USB drive, my movements mechanical. When Clara came home, I played my role. The oblivious husband, asking about her day, nodding at her lies. But inside I was fracturing. I didn't confront her. I needed more proof that wasn't just digital, something tangible to anchor my rage. I started following her, discreetly using my lunch breaks to track her movements. I saw them together twice. Once at a bookstore, their heads bent close over a novel, and once at a diner, her foot brushing his under the table. Each moment was a confirmation, a wound. I didn't know Evan, but I hated him, not just for taking her, but for making me question everything I thought I knew about her. Rage is a quiet thing at first, a smoldering ember you barely notice until it consumes you. I didn't want to just confront Clara, to scream and watch her cry or lie. I wanted her to feel the betrayal as deeply as I did, to understand the weight of what she'd done. I wanted Evan to suffer too, but Clara was my focus. She was the one who'd vowed to love me, who'd built a life with me. Revenge, I decided, would be meticulous, a slow unraveling of her world. I started by gathering more evidence. I installed a tracking app on her phone while she slept, using her thumbprint to unlock it. I followed her to a hotel one afternoon, snapping photos from my car as she and Evan disappeared inside. I hired a private investigator, a discreet woman named Marla, who dug into Evan's life. He was married too, with a son, his wife a nurse who worked long shifts. Perfect, I thought. More leverage. I didn't tell anyone. Not friends, not family. This was mine to handle. At home, I kept up the facade, cooking dinners, reading to Lily, even holding Clara's hand during movie nights. She didn't notice the coldness in my touch, or maybe she chose not to. I began planting seeds of doubt in her world. I'd mentioned seeing a colleague's marriage implode over infidelity, watching her reaction. A flicker of guilt, quickly masked. I left anonymous notes in her studio, vague but pointed. I know what you're doing. She started looking over her shoulder, her confidence fraying. I wasn't ready to strike yet. I wanted her to feel the walls closing in, to sense the inevitability of her exposure. Every night, I planned, my mind a chessboard, each move calculated to maximize her regret. The first act of revenge was subtle, designed to unsettle her without revealing my hand. I contacted Evan's wife, Laura, anonymously. I created a burner email and sent her a carefully worded message, attaching a single photo of Evan and Clara at the diner, their hands intertwined. You deserve to know, I wrote, keeping it short. I didn't sign it. I wanted Laura's reaction to ripple outward, to disrupt Clara's affair without her knowing why. 2 days later, Clara came home rattled, her eyes red. She said a client had canceled a big project. But I saw through her. Laura must have confronted Evan, and the fallout was hitting Clara. She was quieter now, her phone less glued to her hand. I played the concerned husband, asking if she was okay, offering to take her out to clear her mind. She declined, retreating to her studio. I felt a grim satisfaction, but it wasn't enough. I escalated. I started leaving more notes, this time at home, tucked into her sketchbooks or slipped into her purse. You can't hide forever. Her paranoia grew. She changed her phone password twice in a week. I used the tracking app to monitor her movements, noting every meeting with Evan, though they were less frequent now. I also began undermining her professionally. I contacted one of her biggest clients, posing as a concerned colleague, hinting at her unreliability. The client pulled a contract, and Clara spiraled, blaming herself. I watched her unravel, my anger tempered by a cold precision. Lily was my only anchor, her innocence a reminder to keep my revenge contained, to shield her from the wreckage. But Clara's betrayal had shattered something fundamental, and I was determined to make her pay, piece by piece, until she understood the depth of my pain. The unraveling of Clara's world became my obsession, a dark art I perfected in the quiet hours. I kept my routine intact: work, Lily's soccer games, dinners where I smiled through her distracted silences. But beneath it, I was a conductor orchestrating her downfall. The anonymous notes had done their work. Clara was jumpy, her laughter forced, her eyes scanning rooms as if expecting a ghost. I escalated by tampering with her digital life. Using the tracking app, I accessed her email again, forwarding select messages between her and Evan to a burner account. I edited them slightly, making her words sound more reckless, more callous, and sent them to another of her clients, implying she was unprofessional, distracted by personal entanglements. The client didn't renew her contract, and Clara's confidence took another hit. She started drinking more, a glass of wine turning into 3, her sketches piling up unfinished. I feigned concern, suggesting therapy, knowing she'd refuse. Meanwhile, I dug deeper into Evan's life through Marla, the private investigator. She uncovered his financial troubles, debts from a failed photography venture, a penchant for expensive whiskey. I saw an opportunity. I sent another anonymous tip, this time to Evan's landlord, hinting at his unpaid bills. The pressure was mounting on him too. Marla reported he'd argued with Laura publicly, his marriage fraying. Clara's meetings with him dwindled, but they still met, clandestine moments in out-of-the-way cafes. I photographed each one, building a dossier of their betrayal. At home, I planted subtle traps, leaving my wedding ring on the counter by accident, watching her squirm when she saw it, or asking pointed questions about her old college friend, Evan, whose name I'd heard somewhere. Her lies grew clumsier, her guilt a palpable weight. I hadn't confronted her yet. I wanted her to feel trapped, her world shrinking, before I revealed I knew everything. Lily remained my compass. I shielded her from the tension, but her questions, "Why's mommy sad?" cut deep. My revenge was for me, but also for her, for the family Clara had fractured. The next phase was bolder, a calculated strike to expose Clara's duplicity without implicating myself. I'd learned from Marla that Clara was slated to present at a local art gallery's annual showcase, a high-profile event attended by Portland's creative elite. It was her moment to shine, a chance to secure new clients. I saw it as the perfect stage for her humiliation. Using my burner account, I created a slideshow of her affair, blurred photos of her and Evan, snippets of their emails, and a timeline of their meetings, carefully anonymized to avoid legal repercussions. I hacked into the gallery's presentation system during a late-night visit, posing as a tech consultant, and embedded the slideshow to play after Clara's speech. The night of the event, I attended, my heart a drumbeat of anticipation. Clara took the stage, radiant in an emerald dress, her voice steady as she discussed her latest designs. I watched from the back, Lily at home with a sitter, my expression neutral. Her presentation ended to polite applause, but as the screen transitioned, the room fell silent. The first image appeared, Clara and Evan in a park, her hand on his chest. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Text followed, detailing their months-long affair. Clara froze, her face draining of color. The gallery owner scrambled to shut it down, but the damage was done. Whispers erupted, eyes darting to Clara as she fled the stage. I slipped out before she saw me, my satisfaction tempered by a hollow ache. She came home hours later, sobbing, claiming it was a malicious prank. I held her, my voice soothing, but inside, I was a storm. Her reputation was tarnished, her professional circle buzzing with gossip. She didn't suspect me, not yet, but the seeds of her paranoia were blooming into fear. Clara's world began to collapse in earnest now, and I watched it with a detached precision, like a scientist observing a failed experiment. The gallery fiasco cost her 3 major clients, and her social circle shrank as friends distanced themselves, wary of the scandal. She stopped going to her studio, her creativity stifled by shame. At home, she was a shadow, her eyes red from crying, her conversations with me clipped and cautious. I deepened her isolation by subtly sabotaging her remaining connections. I'd accidentally forward emails from mutual friends to spam or decline invitations on her behalf, citing her stress. When her sister called, I'd answer, saying Clara was napping, then forget to pass on the message. She started to feel abandoned, her lifeline to the outside world fraying. I kept up my role as the supportive husband, cooking her favorite meals, suggesting we take Lily on outings, but every gesture was laced with intent. I wanted her to lean on me, to need me, so her eventual fall would be steeper. Evan was out of the picture now. Marla confirmed he'd moved out after Laura kicked him out, his life in disarray. I sent him one final anonymous message. A photo of Clara's tear-streaked face after the gallery, captioned, "Was it worth it?" I didn't care about his response. I just wanted him to know she was suffering too. Clara's paranoia peaked. She installed a security system, convinced someone was stalking her. I played along, suggesting we check the cameras, knowing they'd show nothing. My notes stopped. She was too broken for them to matter now. Instead, I focused on her emotional dependence, becoming her only confidant. Lily noticed the change, clinging to me more, and I vowed to protect her from the final act. My revenge was nearing its climax, but I needed one more piece to ensure Clara's regret was absolute. Clara's professional collapse gave me an opening to strike at her foundation, her financial independence. She'd always prided herself on contributing equally to our household, her design work funding her share of the mortgage, Lily's lessons, and her own indulgences. I decided to take that away, to strip her of the autonomy she'd misused. Using my financial expertise, I accessed our joint accounts and began siphoning small, untraceable amounts into a separate account under a shell company I'd set up. I framed it as an investment loss, doctoring statements to show a market downturn. Clara, distracted by her emotional turmoil, didn't notice. I also contacted her remaining clients, posing as a concerned vendor, hinting at her unreliability. 2 more dropped her, leaving her income nearly non-existent. I watched her panic as bills piled up. Her credit card declined at the grocery store. "We'll figure it out," I said, my voice calm, while I quietly ensured her freelance profile on major platforms was flagged for unverified credentials, further crippling her prospects. At home, I played the savior, covering expenses, but I made sure she felt the weight of her dependence. "Maybe take a break from work," I suggested, knowing she had no choice. Her pride crumbled, her identity as an artist fading. I didn't stop there. I planted evidence of her affair in places she'd find. A printed email in her coat pocket, a photo of her and Evan slipped into her sketchbook. Each discovery was a fresh wound, her guilt compounding her despair. She started apologizing for things she hadn't done, her mind unraveling under the pressure. I kept Lily shielded, enrolling her in after-school programs to limit her exposure to Clara's breakdowns. My revenge was a slow poison, and Clara was drowning in it. I was almost ready for the final blow, but I needed her at her lowest, her spirit broken, before I revealed my hand. The penultimate step was to force Clara's confession, to make her admit her betrayal on my terms. I'd spent months dismantling her world, her career, her social life, her confidence, but I wanted her to lay bare her guilt, to see her crumble under the weight of her choices. I set the stage carefully. One evening, after Lily was asleep, I poured us wine and suggested we talk. The house was quiet, the air heavy with her unspoken fears. I started gently, reminiscing about our early years, our wedding, the day Lily was born. Her eyes softened, then filled with tears. I shifted, my tone still calm but pointed. "I've been feeling distant from you, Clara. Is there something you're not telling me?" Her breath caught, her hands twisting in her lap. I pressed, mentioning her late nights, her secrecy, never accusing but implying I knew more than I let on. She broke as I knew she would. "It was a mistake," she sobbed, confessing to Evan, to months of lies, to moments she swore meant nothing. She begged for forgiveness, clutching my hand, promising to change. I listened, my face a mask of hurt, but inside, I was triumphant. I recorded it all, a hidden device capturing every word. "I need time," I said, pulling away, leaving her in tears. The confession was my weapon, proof of her betrayal in her own voice. I didn't comfort her after. I let her stew in her shame. The next day, I met with a lawyer, preparing for the endgame. Clara's confession would ensure I held all the cards. Custody of Lily, the house, everything. My revenge wasn't just about pain. It was about control, about rewriting the narrative she'd tried to steal. She thought this was the worst of it, but I had one final act, a reckoning that would leave her with nothing but regret. With Clara's recorded confession in hand, I moved to secure my future and Lily's, ensuring Clara's betrayal would cost her everything. I met with my lawyer, Rebecca, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who specialized in high-conflict divorces. I laid out the evidence: the emails, photos, tracking data, and Clara's tearful admission. Rebecca's eyes gleamed as she reviewed it, calling it a slam dunk for custody and asset division. I didn't want just a divorce. I wanted Clara to lose the life she'd taken for granted. We drafted papers that favored me heavily, citing her infidelity and emotional instability as grounds for sole custody of Lily. I also pushed for the house, our savings, and alimony. To rub salt in the wound, I'd make her pay for her own ruin. Rebecca suggested we freeze Clara's access to our joint accounts, framing it as a precaution against her erratic behavior. I agreed, and within days, Clara's debit card stopped working, her financial lifelines severed. She called me in a panic, asking why she couldn't buy groceries. "Bank error," I lied, promising to fix it, while Rebecca ensured the freeze stayed in place. I also had Marla, the private investigator, compile a report on Clara's mental state, exaggerating her drinking and paranoia to paint her as unfit. At home, I kept up the charade, acting distant but civil, letting Clara believe we might reconcile. She clung to that hope, apologizing daily, unaware I was building a cage around her. Lily's well-being was my priority. I enrolled her in therapy, citing family stress, to preempt any claims Clara might make about my parenting. Every move was calculated, my anger channeled into precision. Clara's world was now a house of cards, and I was ready to knock it down. But I wanted her to see it coming, to feel the dread of her own undoing before the final blow landed. The moment of truth arrived on a rainy Saturday, 3 months after the gallery fiasco. I'd waited until Clara was at her most vulnerable, jobless, isolated, and financially dependent. Lily was at a friend's house, giving me the stage I needed. I asked Clara to sit down, my voice calm but cold, and placed a folder on the table. "We need to talk about us," I said, watching her eyes widen with hope, then fear, as I opened the folder. Inside were printouts of her emails with Evan, photos of their rendezvous, and a transcript of her confession. Her face crumpled as she realized the depth of my knowledge. "You thought I wouldn't find out?" I asked, my voice steady, though rage simmered beneath. I played the recording of her confession, her sobs echoing in the quiet room. She tried to speak, to explain, but I cut her off, detailing every lie, every betrayal, and how I'd watched her unravel. "I trusted you," I said, letting the weight of those words sink in. I told her about the divorce papers, the custody battle, the financial freeze, everything I'd orchestrated. Her shock turned to horror as she grasped the scope of my revenge. "Why didn't you just talk to me?" she whispered, but I didn't answer. I wanted her to feel the helplessness I'd felt, the betrayal that had hollowed me out. I handed her the divorce papers, already signed, and told her she had a week to move out. She begged, falling to her knees, but I walked away, leaving her crumpled on the floor. The satisfaction was bittersweet. Her pain mirrored mine, but it didn't erase it. I'd exposed her, stripped her bare, and now I'd take everything she valued. The final act was in motion, and Clara was powerless to stop it. Clara's week to leave came and went, but she didn't go quietly. She alternated between pleading and rage, packing boxes only to unpack them, as if defiance could undo her fate. I remained unmoved, my heart hardened by months of her lies. I'd already changed the locks on our joint accounts and redirected her mail to a P.O. box, ensuring she had no access to our shared life. When she lingered past the deadline, I called Rebecca, who arranged for a sheriff to serve an eviction notice. The sight of Clara, red-eyed and trembling, as the officer handed her the papers was a knife twist of vindication and sorrow. She had nowhere to go. Her sister had distanced herself, her friends were gone, and Evan was a ghost, his own life in ruins. I offered her a single concession: a month's rent in a cheap apartment, paid through Rebecca to keep my hands clean. She took it, her pride shattered, and moved out in a haze of tears and cardboard boxes. Lily stayed with me, her confusion palpable, but I softened the blow with extra time together. Ice cream runs, movie nights, while explaining Mommy needed space. Clara's absence left a void, but I filled it with structure, ensuring Lily's routine was unshaken. I redecorated the house, erasing Clara's vibrant touches, replacing them with neutral tones, as if her presence had been a temporary stain. I also leaked the divorce details to a local gossip blog, anonymized but damning, ensuring Clara's scandal followed her. Her name became synonymous with failure in Portland's tight-knit art scene. I didn't gloat openly, but each report of her struggles, job rejections, whispered rumors, fed my resolve. She'd betrayed me, and now she was paying the price, her life a shadow of what it had been. My revenge was nearly complete, but one final piece remained, a parting shot to ensure she'd never forget. Clara's downfall was almost total, but I wanted one last act to cement her regret, to ensure she carried the weight of her betrayal forever. I learned through Marla that Clara had found a low-paying job as a barista, a far cry from her artistic past. She was scraping by, living in a rundown studio apartment, her spirit broken. I saw my chance to twist the knife. I created a fake social media profile, posing as a former colleague, and befriended her online. Over weeks, I gained her trust, coaxing stories of her struggles, her guilt, her longing for Lily. She poured out her heart, unaware it was me. I used her words to craft a public post, shared on a local community board under her name, detailing her affair, her professional collapse, and her regret, framed as a cautionary tale. The post went viral in Portland, shared by former friends and strangers alike, her humiliation complete. Clara's job fired her after the post surfaced, citing reputational risk. She called me, sobbing, begging to see Lily, claiming she'd changed. I refused, citing the divorce terms, my voice devoid of warmth. I didn't need to see her suffer. The reports were enough. Marla confirmed Clara had started therapy, her life a cycle of regret and survival. I felt a flicker of pity, but it was fleeting. She'd chosen this path, and I'd merely illuminated it. Lily thrived, her resilience a balm, and I focused on rebuilding our life. The house was ours, the accounts secure, and my career untouched. I'd won, but victory was a quiet thing, shadowed by the love I'd once felt. Clara's final lesson was in the silence. No one came to her rescue, no one cared. She was alone, as I'd been in those first moments of doubt. Life settled into a new rhythm, one defined by Lily's laughter and my quiet resolve. The divorce finalized, granting me sole custody and the house, with Clara ordered to pay minimal child support she couldn't afford. I sold her art supplies, donated her clothes, and erased every trace of her from our home. Lily asked about her less often, her memories fading, though I kept a photo of Clara in a drawer, for when Lily might want it. I didn't remarry, didn't date. My trust was a shattered thing, and Lily was enough. Work flourished, my focus razor-sharp, and I invested wisely, securing Lily's future. Clara's life, from what I heard, remained a struggle. She moved to Seattle, chasing a fresh start, but the gossip followed, her name a cautionary whisper. Marla's final report showed her working odd jobs, her art abandoned, her spark extinguished. I didn't gloat. There was no need. My revenge had been surgical, stripping her of everything she valued. Her career, her pride, her daughter. I'd planned it to hurt, and it did, but the cost was my own softness, the part of me that once loved her unconditionally. I carried that loss quietly, a private scar. Lily grew, unaware of the storm that had reshaped our lives, and I poured my energy into her. Her school plays, her soccer goals, her dreams. The world moved on, and so did we, but Clara's betrayal lingered as a lesson. Love can build, but it can also destroy. I'd rebuilt, stronger, while Clara wandered the ruins of her choices. My revenge was complete, its echoes fading, leaving only the life I'd fought to protect.